In this WrestleTalk news, concern over Bray Wyatt's WrestleMania status, new potential plans for Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania, and Luke's review of last night's Raw. Subscribe and enable notifications to always on for daily wrestling news videos.
Support WrestleTalk!
WrestleMania 39's card looks to be shaping up to be quite fun indeed, but unfortunately, it looks like the wheels may be coming off the wagon ever so slightly, as a major WWE star all of a sudden looks in doubt to make it to Mania. The star in question is Bray Wyatt, and following a mysterious no-show at a Madison Square Garden house show on Sunday, questions were naturally asked as to why. Despite rumors swirling that Wyatt's absence at a MSG house show was due to creative frustrations, Fightful Select reported that according to WWE sources, Wyatt is currently dealing with a physical issue, specifically an illness of some kind, and it's not just the MSG show that Wyatt's issue seemed to affect, as Wyatt has also missed the previous 2 weeks of SmackDown, with Lashley predominantly carrying the feud so far. Wyatt currently has no timeline for a return, but WWE reportedly did not expect Wyatt to be out long-term when they got the news. This may have been why they have continued forward with the Bray-Lashley feud on TV. A recent Lashley Twitter post has suggested that new plans may be set to be drawn up for the Almighty. Lashley wrote, "I've worked too hard to be denied. I will be ready to fight on the biggest stage of them all, #WrestleMania. I don't care who it is, somebody will feel the wrath of the Almighty." In a more positive note, Dave Meltzer also noted what he'd heard about the situation on Wrestling Observer Radio, saying, "From what I understand, the match is still on for WrestleMania, and he should be back very soon. That's pretty much all I can say. There is something to it, but I'm not at liberty to discuss it. As far as I know, everything I've been told is that it's not a creative issue or anything like that." As poorly executed as much of Wyatt's return to WWE has been, with the Lashley feud in itself seeming rather nonsensical, it's a massive shame to hear that Wyatt could potentially miss out on his first Mania back. We at WrestleTalk would like to wish Wyatt well in his recovery. If Wyatt does end up missing WrestleMania, let us know what you would like to see Lashley do at Mania instead in the comments. But just in case Wyatt isn't ready to compete in time, one former WWE star has volunteered to replace him, the former Zack Ryder, Matt Cardona, quote retweeting Lashley's original post. "My last WWE match and my first match back? Question mark? Thinking emojis? #always ready." Turns out Cardona's last match in WWE was losing to Lashley on the 9th of March 2020 episode of Raw, as he was released just over a month later at the beginning of the pandemic. Since leaving, Cardona has completely reinvented himself, wrestling for GCW, AEW, and Impact. His real-life wife, Chelsea Green, returned to WWE in January's Royal Rumble, and Cody Rhodes only just told the Good Karma Wrestling podcast he wants Cardona to return to WWE too, to which Matt himself quote retweeted, "I'll be in LA," which is where WrestleMania will be taking place. While losing Wyatt would be a significant blow for WWE, perhaps they may have a cheeky surprise up their sleeve to compensate. A surprise in the form of Stone Cold Steve Austin. While Austin has, as of yet, not been hinted to appear in Hollywood by WWE, it's been well documented that they have tried to tempt the Rattlesnake back for one more match. Both Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar were at one point reported to be potential matches for Austin, however it seems like he wasn't too keen. The reason for this seems to be both creative and monetary, with Fightful reporting that Austin would in fact be open to another match if for the right situation and the right money. As for the Lesnar match in particular, which was reportedly offered to Austin last summer, WWE's money bag was not quite enough for Austin to take the match. As for the Reigns offer, Austin was reportedly offered a much bigger bag to take the match according to Fightful. However, Austin simply didn't get back to WWE on their offer. Fightful state that WWE do still believe that Austin is open to a Mania match, however it may end up not being a huge marquee name that he ends up getting in Hollywood. According to Fightful, LA Knight is a name that has been pitched, however it cannot be confirmed that Austin is in fact going through with WWE's plans or is even considering it. So just imagine, yeah versus what? It writes itself. The crowd will love it. Now over to Luke for Raw.
Thank you for your support on Patreon, the British Bulldog Philip Boy J. Smith Jr. and WrestleTalk's personal ring announcer, Rodrigo Benitez. You can get your name read out on the WrestleTalk news by heading on over to patreon.com/WrestleTalk. And now it's time for my review of Monday Night Raw, aka Brand Split LOL edition of Monday Night Raw. in about 5 minutes. The show opened with Edge calling out Judgment Day in a segment I've seen a half dozen times in the last year alone, and it suddenly hit me why I've had such an issue with this feud. They never acknowledge that Edge keeps winning. In this promo, they talked about how Finn Balor forced Edge to say, "I quit," and then still caved in his wife's skull with a concerto. But they didn't bring up the fact that Edge got revenge for that by eliminating Judgment Day from the Rumble, and then he and his wife beat Balor and Ripley at the last pay-per-view. Not only that, but Edge has beaten Damian Priest and Dominic Mysterio on TV, and has beaten Balor and Priest on pay-per-view last September. So what is Edge actually fighting for here? Well, I don't know, and I don't think he does either, but he does want it to end at WrestleMania inside Hell in a Cell. Balor teased a return of the Demon, and I really hope that he wins this match. If Edge just wins again, I will have zero clue what this was all for. Judgment Day brawled with Edge, who was saved by Johnny Gargano, Dexter Lumis, and Candice LeRae to set up a tag match. Edge and Balor just Thanos'd away. This was your standard formulaic tag match, but all four men worked hard and it got some good heat, particularly anytime Dom tagged in, who was just on fire at the moment. Judgment Day picked up the win when Priest pinned Lumis, but perhaps the bigger problem here is that Rhea Ripley, the #1 contender to the SmackDown Women's Championship at WrestleMania, was just standing at ringside. No match, no promo, no nothing. She was just there and took out Candice once. WWE did such a good job in building Rhea Ripley up to make her feel like a dominating presence, but they've really taken their foot off the gas since she won the Royal Rumble. Fun fact, she hasn't had a match on Raw since before the Royal Rumble. No kidding, before the Royal Rumble. And she's only had 2 matches since the Rumble, one of which she lost when she tagged with Balor to put over the up-and-coming team of Edge and Beth Phoenix. We'll come on to the women's division a bit later on, but suffice to say, Trips needs to do better here with this build for Mania. Omos and Brock Lesnar had a face-to-face where Omos, overpowered Brock and sent him over the top rope. Brock's selling of this was masterful, and it was a really solid build for their Mania match. I know we've been making fun of Brock versus Omos for the last couple of weeks, but this was actually a pretty decent little segment. Cody Rhodes beat SmackDown's LA Knight in a very good match that really showcased Rhodes ahead of his match with Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. This was everything it needed to be and told 2 stories. LA Knight wants to be part of Mania but hasn't found his path, while Cody has his road set and is desperately passionate about beating Roman Reigns. Knight got a good showing here and did an amazing job in making Cody feel like the bigger star while not diminishing himself. Cody cut an amazing promo after the match, which only further highlighted just how much this win means to him. He acknowledges Roman, but he needs Roman to now acknowledge him. He kept putting over the date, April 2nd, as the day when a Rhodes can finally say they are WWE champion. It was awesome. And he also made a Master Sword reference, so it's 6.25 stars. To show how good Cody is, this is a feud where Rhodes has, for all intents and purposes on Raw, feuded with a TV screen or a cameraman. He's either cutting promos to camera on Roman, or he's cutting promos on Roman through Paul Heyman. Outside of their one interaction, which was on SmackDown, this feud hasn't had any actual face-to-face build. And we're 3 weeks out from Mania, and yet it still feels hot. Cody and Reigns are making this feud feel big time without ever seeing each other. And Heyman then announced later in the show that Roman is gonna be on Raw next week. I genuinely cannot wait. This was the high point of Raw, but sadly, there were 2 hours left. Bronson Reed beat Elias to absolutely zero reaction, even his tsunami didn't get a pop, and Austin Theory beat Angelo Dawkins in a very good match that also didn't get the heat that it deserves. It was a bizarre match in the sense the crowd was super into booing Theory at the start, but seemingly lost interest the longer the match went on. They didn't pop for Dawkins' very good near fall, and didn't react when Theory won. They did pop for him doing the STF after the match to call out John Cena, and it set up a match between Theory and Montez Ford for next week. SmackDown's Rey Mysterio came out on Raw for a promo to thank fans for his Hall of Fame induction, but was quickly interrupted by Dom, who challenged him to a match at WrestleMania. There was some unfunny and unnecessary comedy about Dom only getting a BMW and not a Mercedes for his 16th birthday, but outside of that, this was a really good segment. It wasn't as good as the one on SmackDown, but Rey is really selling this feud great. I'm so intrigued as to how Dom is going to get Ray to accept the match, as again, Ray said he will not fight his son. Very solid, but standard build for Mania. Seth Rollins beat Baron Corbin with The Miz providing commentary, and it was announced that Logan Paul will be on Raw next week. There are a couple of storylines running backstage throughout the show. First was Chad Gable trying to find Otis, only to discover he was hanging out with Maximum Male Models. Otis then decided he'd rather hang out with his cool new friends than stay behind and study with Chad Gable. More like Sad Gable. The second was Damage Control attacking Trish Stratus, which only angered Team Backstream. I'm sure this was all filmed at this show and they were totally backstage in that very building. Wink. But it was at least some build for their WrestleMania match, which is more than I can say for Bianca Belair versus Asuka. Seriously, what is going on with this feud? Belair beat Chelsea Green despite some big interference from Carmella, and then Asuka made the save from a 2-on-1 beatdown and danced with her belt for a bit. What is the story here? What is the point of any of this? Why, 3 weeks out from Mania, has this feud not actually begun? Is this going to be another Bianca-Sasha, where the feud leading into Mania absolutely sucked, but the match was an absolute classic, so no one talks about how bad the build was? And also, this was the only women's match on the show, and it came like 2.5 hours into the broadcast. It's like watching Dynamite. And that isn't good enough. And Trips should do better. And the main event saw SmackDown Solo Sikoa beat Kevin Owens in a street fight with the help of the Usos. Earlier in the night, KO said that he didn't want Cody helping him, and he got his wish, because the Bloodline beat him 3-on-1 and stood tall. At some point, Owens is going to need to swallow his pride, but tonight was not that night. So that was this week's Raw, and yeah, it was alright. Some good build here and there, but not a lot of it feels particularly hot outside of Cody, and the show really dragged in those last 2 hours. This week's Raw is, I guess, 3 out of 5. We've got a new edition of Worst Match Ever dropping tomorrow on the WrestleTalk podcast channel, and here is a taster of what happened when we watched Sharmell versus Jenna from TNA Victory Road 2009.
She didn't get on with it. Here you go. Here we go. Pete has fallen out of his chair. Spear!